Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be inviting our next speaker on stage. Allibhai is an international fashion trends commentator, director and creative consultant, currently the international content and fashion director for Aspo magazine. He is the head of fashion for the leading e-commerce studio, which is named as 100% Studios. He has also served as head of fashion at Gay Times magazine. So ladies and gentlemen, please, let's have a huge round of applause for Allibhai.
Can you all hear me? Good morning, thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you guys today. My name is Allibhai. I am the International Content and Fashion Director for Allibhai magazine, which is a publication which has been put together to help young people break into the creative industry. I'm also a fashion trend commentator as well. So my talk today, when Paola asked me to be part of this presentation, the first thing I said was yes. Obviously, you never say no to Paola, so I said yes. That's the reason I'm here. And when she elaborated that the talk was about cracks and fault lines and creating opportunities for the future, I was very excited to come in and speak to you. If there is an industry that has a lot of cracks and fault lines and always creates opportunities and always seems to create reinvention, that is that of the fashion industry. So it's my hope today that I'm bringing some insights about what's going on in the world of fashion, and you guys can take that and make it into the world of jewellery as well. So what is the future of fashion? In troubled times, it's time to be big and to be bold, and the fashion industry has always evolved its seasonal shopping. Well, not anymore. The time it takes to upload a new look on social media feeds and shared by millions instantly is now the new normal. The fashion sector is now currently in hyperdrive and is not fully undisciplined and it's all slow moving. At the same time, fashion companies now have less power to drive these speedy trends, which come and go as soon as an influencer has posted their outfit of the day and moved on. The industry now depends on the illusions of change, newness, and must-have trends. But it's reached a really dizzying height at the moment, and it's new in the old, out with the new sector. It's hard to stay cool for 30 years because fashion consistently changes fast. The fact is that technology has rapidly changing how people shop and style themselves. Young consumers, which I can see a lot of young people in the audience today, crave for fashion and lifestyle-related digital content. That's not just about inspiring a new look, it's about entertainment now too. Many digital-first fashion labels act like media brands in their own right, and online retailers are making more money than the physical stores as they continue to struggle. Now, I'm not saying that all mainstream stores are going to be obsolete. What I'm saying is that we need to look at ways of how it's changing and how to make bricks and mortar more relevant. There is also a fever pitch of ever faster fashion cycles, and many are questioning the ethics of the fashion industry that sees huge overproductions in garments with massive environmental impacts. The fashion industry produces 20% of global wastewater and 10% of worldwide carbon emissions, and that's more than any international flights and maritime shipping combined. And this, according to the latest report by the United Nations, textile dyeing is the second largest polluter of water globally. Sustainability continues to be one of the top agendas on topping the fashion agenda. And there's no doubt that the industry needs to find a new model to align financial profitability and sustainability. So how can the fashion industry evolve a fast fashion model without compromising products, profits and brands, and which antidotes to mass consumption and even faster fashion cycles? So this is what I'm setting the context really what my talk is about today. And I'm going to look at different sections and talk about how fashion is actually evolving in those. I want to share a little bit about market dynamics and just kind of break down the fashion sector in general. The fashion market globally is worth $1.66 trillion, and we produce 100 billion garments each year, and that's been doubling since the year 2000. So that actually, if you break that into context, that actually equates to 14 new clothing articles for every person on the earth. However, I kind of feel like I own more than 14 articles of clothing because I'm a bit of a fashionista, so I think I'd probably add to that as well. It's the 7th largest economy ranked alongside GDPs of all global economies and all global markets. And we're estimating there's going to be a 5% annual growth in consumption per year right the way through to 2050. Simply put, the old rules of fashion are not working, particularly in retail. People now need agile and to think about their online strategy first. And I think this is just happening across all major parts of industry as well. We are moving into a digital age, and the digital era is actually pushing for fashion brands to be a bit more creative and really think about their digital strategy and their off-putting. We need to look at staying relevant to consumers. It's crucial. Self-disruption now is paramount importance. Those fashion labels that disrupt their own offerings and their own business models and how they operate are the ones that are likely to survive. So appealing to a mindful female millennial or Gen Z shopper in North America or Europe or Asia isn't easy. So things like brand makeovers are one tool of doing it, creating new images and refreshing old ones to show the company has fingers on the pulse. I don't know if anyone's seen that Burberry's actually went through a stage and they've actually rebranded. So some brands, some fashion brands go for like rebranding, changing their logos, giving it a bit of a freshen up. Some brands tend to go down more of a streetwear route. And there's a greater tendency to look at collaborations, which I think is something which the jewelry industry could look at doing as well. So collaborations and flexing brands' identity as far as it goes to stretch and pique an interest. Now, according to the McKinsey Global Fashion Index, it predicts that the best performing segment is luxury and is fueled by fast-growing economies in the Asia Pacific. Luxury brands are increasingly embracing the digital channels as a route to market. Focusing in on Asia, this is the real region for growth. So, for instance, Palace touched upon this earlier, China is set to overtake the US as the world's largest fashion market. And that's down to the expanding middle class in China. Established labels are now also creating accelerators and incubators in a bid to test new approach to new markets. And these can be a little bit more flexible and less riskier than mergers or acquisitions. And it's also a lot more costly as well. So brands like LVMH have set something up called Le Maison de Startup, which is basically them helping and investing in young startup fashion companies. And there's also Plug and Play, which is by Kearings, which is an accelerator looking at sustainability. I want to touch a little bit on the subject of fast fashion, and I'm going to go into that in a second. Fast fashion is hot, and in a polarised market, it's hollowed out the middle, so leaving luxury and affordable. Budget items are thriving. In fact, fast fashion has changed the way that clothes are produced for good. Across many apparel categories, items are kept for half the time that they're kept for a decade ago, with some of the lowest priced garments disposed of after 7 or 8 weeks worth of wear, this again according to McKinsey. And in this climate, companies have been compressing production cycles, and the space that for 2 weeks it takes for a trend to be exhibited on a catwalk, it can now actually be produced and turned into an affordable fashion item, and in the shop or on the shelves. And this enables shoppers to expand and refresh their wardrobes in an affordable manner, at a speed keeping up to date with the latest fads. Size matters. Basically, what's really interesting is that online fashion retailers have not yet to break the elite group of what's known as the fashion super winners. And these are businesses that have a scaled advantage in fashion. So they have a combination of a physical store space, a strong brand image, and efficient operations. Plus the ability to produce garments rapidly at lower cost is very essential. This is why companies like Inditex of Spain, which own Zara, and Hennes & Mauritz, or H&M, in Sweden, are the 2 world's largest clothing retailers. They not only savagely follow fashion trends, but they have a winning combinations listed above. So again, it's all about having that consistency in terms of how you're delivering your clothes and your quick response to market as well. Then there's Uniqlo, which is the main brand of the 3rd largest company in Japan called Fast Retailing, which focuses on timeless basics And there's also TJX, which is an excess inventory brand, which buys up all the excess stock from various fashion labels and across the US, and providing countless outlets in an ability to clear excessive stock. That is now the fastest US retailer. Oop, sorry. Okay, Amazon. So Amazon hasn't yet fully conquered the fashion market, but it'd be foolish to ignore its presence. Well, fashion brands in particular, DMVBs, and what I mean by DMVBs are what is digitally native vertical brands, and these are like fast fashion retailers like your ASOS's, your Net-a-Porter's, even Farfetch as well. These are brands which are really selling a lifestyle, but it's hard not to ignore Amazon's presence in the fashion market. This global giant has entered fashion retailing, meaning that markets need to think about price and logistics, both of which Amazon have clearly mastered. It's the real reason, I don't know if you guys have heard of a brand called Zalando. Is that familiar to everyone? Yeah. So Zalando is Europe's biggest online fashion retailer, and it's invested heavily in logistics. And their aim is to be speedy in terms of delivery, so they can get items to customers, within the same day or the next day in Germany. And a lot of fashion companies are now looking at replicating this particular model. The prominence of digital. So, as we've mentioned, and it's probably going to come across in a lot of the speeches today, fashion executives are pivoting towards e-commerce for growth, with a deeper focus on mobile platforms. We all have mobile phones. I know sometimes when you're on a train, the first thing you do is probably go on an app and have a look at certain things. So mobile is obviously going to be a big focus in the fashion sector. There is a new breed of ultra-fast online brands that are challenging retailers such as Zara and H&M over the past couple of years. And this has been a key battleground in terms of consumer spend. Online fashion sales account for 15% in the European Union, 20% in the US, and a whopping 39% in China. However, in the emerging markets, it's still as low as 6%, but yet more consumers are purchasing online as they've never touched or tried on an item before. Retailers are being challenged to create exciting digital experiences that provide excitement, context, and inspiration, which again is something which I'm sure a lot of my fellow speakers are going to be touching on as well. We're living in an age that we're relying on things like Snapchat and Instagram. Instagram, ironically, happens to be the world's fastest growing social web commerce platform. Facebook and other apps to help propagate marketing and sales. Today, it's all about conversational commerce, and this is a trend just set to continue. It's all about seducing retailers with content and imagery. It's also a mixture of digitized responses alongside personal human interactions, and this is why brands like Everline in the US and Tommy Hilfiger rely on. I now want to talk about DMVBs, which I mentioned about before. So DMVBs are digital vertical brands, native vertical brands. So these are brands like Boohoo, Misguided, ASOS, to name a few. And these are digital native companies that offer a direct-to-consumer offering, and they are really transforming the face of fashion at the moment. They promise consumers an exciting, new, and better way to shop. And above all, these brands are great at storytelling. Again, Paula has mentioned in her opening speech about great storytelling and being visual. And they are hyper-focused on customers. DMVBs have been able to commercialize a highly different product offering, seducing younger consumers by giving them A, convenience, B, value for money, and just something completely different, which I think we're all looking for when it comes to shopping. Their core business mainly lies in the digital world, although some brands are now branching out and offering some open retail outlets. Now, launching these businesses require a huge amount of capital, and they have everything to do with designing and manufacturing clothes and sales and marketing, creating a whole new supply chain mechanism from scratch. And DMVs have also tried to unlock the tremendous amount of cost savings in supply chains. They're implementing novel approaches and riding in the trends in the market to become successful. I now want to look at some other ways that fashion is engaging consumers on various digital platforms. There's going to be a lot of aphorisms, so bear with me. So, influencer-generated content. We all live in the world of the influencer. Put your hands up if you have an Instagram account. Yeah? So, you are all influencers. You are generating content on a regular basis. And fashion brands have actually jumped on this. Boohoo was one of the first brands to use social media influencers on an industrial scale. It now has a network of tens of thousands of influencers that they turn to. Young consumers want a more personalised communication, and IGC, or influencer-generated content, helps them to achieve that. When IGC leaders align themselves with popular social movements such as body positivity or diversity and inclusion, this helps foster communities around brands. Fashion retailers have also been known for teaming up with influencers to co-create exclusive collections, and these partnerships benefit both parties. The brand is exposed to the influencer's following, and while the influencer builds their own profile by doing something cool with a fashion brand. So think of people like Kylie Jenner, think of people like the Kardashians, and I'm sure a lot of the Bollywood actresses and actors are partnering up with brands, A, because they have that reach, and they also want to reach out to other people as well. So staying on the theme of influencers, we have what's now known as the micro-influencer. And these are targeting 16 to 30-year-olds, focusing on digital and social media rather than traditional marketing forms is crucial. Obviously, alongside high-profile influencers, fashion retailers are now capitalizing on smaller-scale influencers. Again, I use Boohoo as an example because Boohoo is a brand that's really revolutionized fashion retail in the UK. And what they've done is they've set something up which is called the Student Ambassador. And this is the most effective influencer, always the ones which are the most recognizable. So they're basically using people that will post their stuff. You know, they have a smaller engagement group, but it's effective because they're targeting and they're being really specific about who they're engaging to. User-generated content. We all want social proof, and basically we all do this. Put your hands up if you put your, you're looking good, you're really happy in an outfit that you're wearing. Put your hands up if you take a picture of yourself and you're sharing it on your social media channels. Please put your hands up if you do that. I'm going to be the first one to say yes. We all do this, yeah? Okay. So this is what brands are now doing as well. And it's not just in the high fashion market, it's also in the luxury market as well, like Burberry, for example. They have a section on their website which is basically showcasing all what their customers are wearing. And in the case of Boohoo, it encourages consumers to shop the feed with a focus into shop on its website. And companies are increasingly trying to ensure that shoppers can easily buy items found and featured on social media feeds, such as Instagram, whilst also sharing customer photos, hashtagging campaigns, and when used directly on e-commerce sites. Social commerce. Again, we all have Instagram, right? Have you seen now that Instagram has channels now where you can actually purchase them on Instagram? Well, this is going to be a new direction which is really going to be focusing a lot more with e-com. I have the privilege of working with a number of brands and help conduct and consult on their e-com strategies. So new apps are starting to pop up with social commerce at the core of their business. Users can discover products and brands in Instagram, Pinterest, or Snapchat, and then they buy natively in those apps, allowing people to download on a separate app to explore full collections. These apps also allow for product discovery, either through their unique independent fashion labels or product recommendations based on users' social activity. Authentic content is crucial, and personal testimonies win every time. My mum always says, people buy from people, and this is basically taking that analogy and taking it to the next level. How many times have you been swayed by what you see somebody wearing, or recommendations to a restaurant, what people would recommend it? We all buy from people, and it's taking that social element and pushing it forward. We're entering into a maturing mobile sector, and it's predicted that a lot of e-com and retail is going to be done online or through mobile. And as we're entering into a maturing mobile market, we have to think of ways, the fashion industry are thinking of ways of making it a little bit more exciting. So ASOS have launched augmented reality virtual catwalk within its shopping app. So essentially what you're doing is you're pointing a phone at any flat surface and the customers are able to see a model as if they were walking through the surface in front of them. I am going to talk about a little bit about AI and visual responses, etc. when I go through my presentation. But this is something that the fashion industry are really engaging in. Again, new technologies, making things exciting for consumers. This is what the fashion industry is doing, and again, all industries are doing as well. And it's not just happening on the actual mobile sector, even physical spaces. I mean, I don't know if anyone's gone into various shops now. There's a lot of engagement, which you can go and you've got apps installed that you can maybe check things and have a look at what you're wearing. Again, it's engagement. It's getting people involved in the product. What is interesting is that it's predicted by 2021, nearly 70% of retail e-commerce sales will come from mobile. So again, as a jewelry sector, really think about mobile, really think about e-commerce, because it's going to generate a lot of sales. And if you combine the strategy with having great content and great visuals, this is going to help push things further. I want to talk a little bit about something called drop culture. I don't know if this is something which happens here in India, but it's something which has been happening across the world, in particular in the Western markets like in New York and in London. But fashion has basically adopted something which is called drop culture. And at a guess, if anyone wants to guess what it means, does anyone want to try and answer what drop culture is? If I was to say, what is drop culture, does anyone have I like to throw questions out because I like to talk to people. So does anyone want to answer, give an idea what drop culture is? Yeah?
It's a short-term collaboration between a brand and it's a short-term collaboration between a brand and a designer, where the quantity of product that is dropped into the market is really small, and it's a capsule collection that is there available for only a limited amount of time. And what it does is it drives a lot of engagement and interest in the brand, and it keeps the brand top of mind season after season, month after month, I guess. Right?
Yeah, pretty much. Thank you. Thank you. So, yeah, pretty much as Narendra said, it's basically a short-term collaboration. I like to see it as fast fashion plus social media equals drop culture. Drops involve posting a picture of a garment on social media. So again, if you wanted to incorporate this and start drop culture in the jewelry industry, it could be a limited edition piece. It could be a limited edition watch, whatever. Alongside its release date, and it generally ramps up an interest, and pushing that it's a limited edition or have selected outlets, short time frames, all tactics are used, and the idea to create a sense of urgency is the illusion here. Drop culture is really embraced with a lot of the young sort of streetwear brands like Adidas and Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Places. Have you heard of a brand called Places Plus Faces? All these young fashion brands tend to use drop culture to create a hype around their products. Okay. Another issue of affecting fashion is supply chain. Those with a formidable supply chain taking products from nascent trend to a clinical or online presence delivered at lightning fast speed are the ones which are doing well. This involves superior digitalization, great analytics even, and a back end which is second to none. Flexibility is key. The key things here are quick turnarounds, inventory turnover, and transparency. I just wanted to quickly talk through this slide here, and it basically just talks around the Zara supply chain. So, Zara, obviously owned by Inditex Group, they can get a piece of apparel from design right into a workshop or on a rack in a Manhattan store, they claim within 25 days. So the journey, day one is the designer in Spain sketches a new piece from the store managers on the latest trends. Day 2 to 5, a pattern maker creates a prototype. from day 6 to 21, fabrics is cut, so 8,000 new pieces, so coats, dresses, etc. are all sewn together to provide nearby factory. By day 21 to day 24, it's going in route into distribution, and by day 25, it's in store. What is interesting is that brands like ASOS and brands like Boohoo are actually really sort of pushing this. They actually have an even faster turnaround. They can have items online within a couple of days, 4 to 5 days, maybe a week. So it's really interesting that they're really pushing this fast fashion agenda. However, as the supply chain that happens, there is issues and problems, and one of the biggest issues in the fashion industry is dealing with returns and resizing. And research shows that 76% of customers return clothing because of the size. Even though we want to shop for convenience, I am the worst. I've been in Pune for 2 weeks, and I've had no one to talk to, so I literally had my phone as my friend, and I decided to shop online. I haven't tried on these clothes. I'm probably going to do a lot of returns when I get back, but with the convenience, it also causes problems, and there's a rise in returns, which is obviously going to be an inevitable part of e-commerce boom. What's interesting is that returns are very costly to a business, and it also affects customer satisfaction as well. And there's issues of reprocessing and putting the garments back into stock. And in the fashion industry, free returns drive profits as a competitive advantage. But now that it's becoming the industry norm, everybody's doing it, everyone's offering free returns. And brands are rethinking their return strategies. So in the area of fast fashion, the fit of a garment is one element that companies have an issue, and a change in fabric and designs have big impact on sizing. So I mentioned brands like ASOS are trying to overcome this issue by allowing people to buy several sizes, try them at home, and return the items free of charge at a huge cost to them. Free returns are very much part of the norm for fashion DMV brands. It's why the likes of Zara and H&M are utilising software suggesting a size for those who order online. Customers type in their height, their weight, and the data is then produced alongside historic data purchases and returns. Amazon is also driving innovation in this area by developing via its Eco-Look device. And this is the first generation e-look device, which takes the full length of images of the consumer and can make recommendations based on what outfits which have been worn. And Amazon has acquired, correct me if I'm wrong, something which is called Body Lab, which is a scanning device where you can scan, obviously, yourself, get all your measurements and things like that. And companies are hoping technology will slow the growth rate of returns, and many businesses also use Fit Analytics, which is a Berlin-based organisation which uses machine learning sizes platform. It's now used by over 200 companies, including ASOS, Tommy Hilfiger, Calvin Klein, and Hugo Boss. Again, this is all about personalisation. So again, making things personal. You need to think about making things easy for your consumer at the end of the day. And no one as yet has cracked the code for the perfect fit, but those who get there first, minimising returns and maximising customer satisfaction and profits will gain a huge advantage over their rivals. Now, Zara and its 300 designers can create 12,000 new patterns every year for the fastest fashion. It takes 6 weeks to go from sketch design to product in store, but Boohoo can design and manufacture and dispatch tiny pieces, around 300 pieces, of a particular design within 2 weeks, making it even more responsive. I talked a bit about digital. There we go. Sorry. So I talked a bit about digital and how the fashion industry is really sort of embracing digital. But let's not ignore the power of in-store. Everybody wants an experience, right? You want to go into a store, gone are the days that you're just picking stuff up. It's all about having an experience. And bricks and mortar stores remain the best way to have that direct and powerful connection between fashion garments and customers. And this is a conclusion of the 20 super winners, and again, the McKinsey Fashion Report. And the fact that DMV brands are now investing in stores as the importance of physical garments and a branded space. Fashion still benefits from physical meaning engagement in the real world, and bricks and mortar should not be viewed as simply as a part of the retail strategy. It's better to think of it as an extension of a brand's marketing and advertising. With the cost of digital marketing on the rise and screaming into a saturated mass of an online mass, it's also an issue, and in some instances, it can also benefit to have an open space of a physical store. So we talked about creating experiences, so I like to call it retailtainment, which is basically when you go in the store, you're being entertained, you're looking at different things which are going on, you know, you have sensors that you can touch, you know, you're really engaged. Even from the place of, you know, from the layout of the store, you know, it's really creating that sense of engagement. One such store which is doing an amazing, which is combining their online presence with a physical retail space is Farfetch and their Store of the Future. I did have a video up. So again, it's using augmented reality. It's raising questions like, why doesn't the staff in my previous store know my purchases? And why loyal customers are not given the same treatment when visiting their store in New York as in Shanghai? And Farfetch is obviously looking to solve these problems with their in-store data. So everything you're touching, everything you're clicking, one of the big things here in fashion is the use of data. And it's going to be something which is going to continue. Collecting data and using things like smart mirrors and interactive screens gives visibility to retailers in a similar way to online data. The Store of the Future is all about offering an experience of Apple, but the convenience of Amazon. The aim is to provide full visibility around customer behaviour and the intent of mirroring what's possibly online. So again, having that same convenience of having something online, but you're doing the same convenience in store as well, you know, creating that experience for them. So think about your retail space as a physical cookie. You know, when you go online, you have cookies online. So this is essentially what your retail space should be like as well. We talked about the issue earlier, Paula mentioned about sustainability, and I did talk at the beginning of my talk about sustainability, and it continues to be a huge issue within the fashion industry. There's no doubt that fashion should not cost the earth, but the industry, unfortunately, is very rough on the environment. The emissions from clothing exceed those from all maritime shipping and international flights combined. There's now a broader push to make fashion less damaging, and sustainability is increasingly seen as commercial. What's interesting is brands like Inditex have announced that all of its collections will be made with 100% sustainable fabrics by 2025. Other fashion giants like Nike and Gap are making similar commitments to using more sustainable materials and cutting down their carbon footprints. And H&M have been offering a garment recycling service across their stores for years now. Has anyone used that at all, their recycling service? Yeah, bring your hands up. If anyone's used it. And other brands like Levi's, if you buy anything from their authorised vintage collections, you can now go in-house, and again, it's all about upcycling, it's all about repurposing, repackaging. You can go in-house, you can change the way your jeans look, you know, they can add different stitchings, they can re-customization and repurpose the products. There is now a UN Sustainability Fashion Charter, as well as a European Clothing Action Plan, aimed to reducing waste by embedding a circular approach. And at the recent G7 summit, 32 fashion companies have signed a so-called Fashion Pact, which has been aimed to drive sustainability in the industry. Those who signed these in Fashion Pact include brands like Chanel, Ralph Lauren, Prada, plus fast fashion brands like H&M and Inditex. There was a campaign which was targeting young Londoners recently called #Love Not Landfill. It's a campaign targeting, as I mentioned, London fashion young Londoners to reduce waste in fashion in the UK. And recently, the British Fashion Council has revealed its commitment to sustainability by launching an initiative named the Institute of Positive Fashion. In New York, an organisation called Fashion of Tomorrow advocates for more of a sustainable approach, and there are many other initiatives coming along as well. So I just wanted to kind of just emphasize, again, by numbers, the impact that the industry has. You know, we are a $2.5 trillion industry. It's the second highest user of water. It's the highest polluter, responsible for 10% of the global carbon emissions. What's interesting is that 1 in 6 people in the world work in fashion or related industries. 89% of women throughout the world are within that particular supply chain. It's estimated that 85% of textiles are sent to landfills, and that's an estimated of 21 billion tons per year. So rethinking and resourcing materials and sourcing are one thing, but that doesn't address the issue that the industry is producing far too many garments. I believe we are living in an era of mass consumption. We're buying stuff that we don't actually physically need, and it's really impacting the environment. So what are we doing to change this? What's interesting, there's an emerging trend amongst millennials and the upcoming Gen Z to buy less and buy better. And it basically goes back to an age-old adjective that customers should treasure and reuse clothes and review themselves in the seasonal cycle. There are several digital services that are bringing the circular economy to force, and it's an economic system that's aimed by eliminating waste and continued use. It's all about post-consumer recycling, finding new life in garments that otherwise will go to a landfill. And there's a demand now for ethical clothing, and it's increased exponentially. There's 66 more searches for sustainable fashion, which I found shocking actually, when you're going on, which is according to the latest fashion search from the list. And now some are calling peer-to-peer fashion commerce, which there's a company called The Real, which is valued at over $2 billion, and Farfetch's Second Life are active in this space. And then there's a brand called Mudseller, which offers a choice between buying jeans or leasing them. And this is something which is going to be continuing quite a bit. So we need to change the way that we're thinking about fashion, and we need to, we need to look at a new economic vision for fashion as well. It's no longer business as usual. So the fashion industry is becoming a lot more responsive and really taking on the issues which are impacting the industry. I want to quickly just touch upon something called fashion as a service. Okay. And then I'm going to wrap up. And so I'm going to quickly touch on something called fashion as a service, which is Netflix and fashion. And again, this talks about things like as a company called Rent the Runway, but just to put this into context, 42% of items are clothes which are rented by the post-90s generation. And Rent the Runway is a revolutionary way, as a store concept which has been set up, where you can actually rent items. And again, it's really engaging people to think about it's helping them to not buy more. It's like, you can still have new items and buy less, and yeah. So I'm going to wrap up. There is more, but I have to wrap because I have 5 minutes left. I've gone over my quota. But I hope this has given a bit of an insight of what's going on in fashion and how the fashion industry are actually dealing with some of these issues. And I feel like there's a lot of transfers as well, which you can learn and take from the jewellery sector as well. So thank you so much for listening to my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank you, but then I want to just, trigger the audience interest.
Yeah.
I think that there are many ideas and inspiration from, the fashion industry, and I think that one of the reasons why we are exposing into these informations, because they have to be translated into this market, into this sector. There are things like, for instance, one that, we talk about, I love when we are using a different semantic, which is a language that is not used in the jewelry industry, timeless necessity. Timeless necessity that, created by Uniqlo, those are like basic product that they have to last, so classic. This kind of language should be incorporated in our jewelry industry, because our jewelry industry is very boring, right? I mean, we have to create also some kind of new language into this market, and the reason why I hope we are creating this cross-culture moment is to start thinking that way. So I am very happy, and I think, and I'm actually, I really support this concept of having some visionary and marketers from the fashion industry or the movie industry that can really inspire our industry to think differently and to present our goods differently. Because getting a tennis bracelet is boring by now, but getting a timeless necessity is interesting, correct? Now, look at the imagery that they're showing, and even the campaign that they have online, and the women or men that they're showing, they are aspirational, showing a woman just with a lot of makeup and some earrings on and jewelry. It's boring nowadays. So let's start selling attitude versus a classic beauty from the 1900s, because the world has changed. Thank you, Ash. We'll have the panel discussion later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for such a detailed presentation.